Rightio. Rightio, folks. Welcome. We'll start this meeting again. Right back from we are. Yes. Right back from the start. Welcome to everybody. Call for apologies.
Done that.
I know.
Do that again.
Have we got that written down?
No.
Lyndall Ludlow,
Lyndall Ludlow is the only one.
happy to
And
move.
Nickel moved and Eric seconded that. He's agreed.
Aye.
Aye.
Come on, folks.
It sounds organised.
Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? I have one regarding an item that's coming up about Wilding Pines. I know we're not making any decisions, we're just receiving a report, but I just thought I would note that I am on the Mid-Dome Wilding Pine Trust. Okay, so we're going to move into any public forum petitions or deputations. Don't see any of that. So we're going to look at the minutes of the last meeting, 28th of May. Has anyone had a chance to have a look at those and any comments on those? Eric.
Well, look, when we just look at who's present, doesn't acknowledge who actually was chairing the meeting. It's got Nickel Horrell as the chairman, and
Last regional services.
Regional services rather, yeah. So I'm just wondering if we could just get that a little bit clearer to people. Yeah, he's the chairman of the regional council, but you actually chair.
I did.
Yeah, and did very well, Mr. Chairman. But anybody reading these, I think it just clarifies the point. It's not a biggie, but
no, it's good to pick up on that though. So that will be noted. Thanks.
You need to move it for the minute.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
just a couple of questions already asking whether or not the minutes are complete. And I brought this up at another time recently. On page 2 of the minutes, under questions, there was a report that says Sarah Yarrow and Kane Duncan from the Wakamana Te Waituna Trust attended the meeting and provided an update on this item, but there's no record of what they said. And I think somebody reading these minutes would find that a little bit maybe frustrating. So I think there needs to be a record of what they said, or at least a reference to the video of the meeting, so that people could go to it without having to write out in detail what was there. I'd like some sort of ruling on this, Mr. Chairman, because I don't think it's adequate the way that it is. That's my opinion, anyway. And I've got one other comment to make. I'd like you to comment on that, or somebody else to say whether or not they agree with that or not.
I agree with you, Mark.
Okay, so what's the general view around what Morris has just said? Jeremy, you got something to say?
I think this has actually been discussed before, and I think can we just have a link to either YouTube or wherever, that it would be something simple like that, just to,
Would that satisfy?
they said it might have been complicated, but I think that was the first initial, but I mean, it's important though.
Would that be good? Would that be a good start?
Well, if other people think that's a reasonable solution to that, I think it is important so that people are reading the minutes can actually see what was said at the meeting.
You are correct. Can we note that down, please? Okay.
And there are two other things, Mr. Chairman, on page 4, similar, same issue actually. It just says that they talk to their quarterly report, so once again a reference would need to be there. And the Rakura Trust update as well. There's another place where that could have been done. It says Rod Phillips spoke to his report, but there's nothing there to say what he said. And
Well, I think we've got that as an action there. Morris, if you're-
Under number 7, questions, you asked a question. This is on page 11 now. Maybe that's for today. Sorry, is that for today?
Yes,
Number 7?
around the abatement notice.
Right, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Al, you had something.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Morris is saying here. Also, the next 2 and 3 questions. Really, I think it's getting now 2 cycles back that those questions were put in here. Shouldn't we have an answer? That's just my question.
Any views on that, committee?
I think that the link to YouTube is probably quite a good link for people. You know, like Mike Turner, there's a report in the paper, quarterly report probably answers a lot of questions. But I think if Morris's point, rather than having somebody having to put a whole lot of comprehensive written minutes in, if it's live streamed and people can go to it, that I think that does probably solve some of those issues. But if there's unanswered questions, and we are still the haul out facility is still something in progress that we don't have an answer for yet, but it should keep, some of those things should keep coming up so that we don't lose sight of them.
Oh, well, that's good. I think the committee's pretty clear on that point and supporting Morris on that. So, Dave, you would say
I
something?
think it's really important you don't put verbatim item minutes in there, otherwise your minutes get so long. But yeah, I think you're saying you'd like a salient little summary of what the answer was. We'll see what we can do. Sound all right?
That does.
Because otherwise you get into.
We've been there and done that with word for word. Yeah. Okay, so that's reasonably clear. We'll move on. If there's no further discussion, can I ask for someone to move those minutes? Thanks, Jeremy. Someone to second. Thanks, Paul. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So we go now to notification of extraordinary or urgent business. There's none. And then we move to questions. I've got a question I submitted. Should be in front of you on the agenda. And I put this question in here because it's reasonably, well, it's pretty high interest out there in the community at the moment and has been for a while. There's an awful amount of confusion around this. Why would an entity issue itself an abatement notice? It seems quite strange. There's a lot of talk around it, inaccurate talk. So my view around this question is not to hit anyone over the head with it or to embarrass of any type, but it's more so we have one story instead of having 6 different stories on this critical, which I think could be a turning point for this council. So I can read the question out, but I assume staff have had a look at that. And David, do you want to just...
I'll turn it over to Hayley, who's online. She would have been here, but she's got a cold, so she doesn't want to cough all over us. We did answer the question similarly at the Mataura Liaison Committee, very similar kind of wording. But Hayley, I think you'll take the lead here.
Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Staff members here that can then maybe help clarify some of the questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your question, Councillor McDonald. This response has been prepared with input from both the Strategy and Regulation Division, so covering, of course, Resource Management and Consents, as well as the Integrated Catchment Management Division, so it's had the input from David. And to Councillor Rodway and the other fine councillors around the table, their point earlier, I have sent a copy of this response to Michaela so that she is able to make an appropriate summary for the record. So in terms of the works undertaken, from October 2023 to January 2024, the Catchment Operations Division undertook, via a contractor, various physical works in and adjacent to the bed of the Waimea stream. The stream is subject to a drainage scheme regime, where inspections are regularly undertaken, willows are periodically maintained, stream bank erosion is managed, and weed and sediment removed if required. The key purposes of this specific works during the above dates were described as managing lateral erosion that result in banks collapsing and allow sediment to be released into the downstream receiving environment. Southland is full of subsurface drainage systems or tiles which provide outfall to roading farms and stormwater in towns. These systems need to be monitored and timely interventions made by removing any sediment, gravel or vegetation buildups in order to protect people and valuable infrastructure, to keep them safe. Maintain and remove exotic vegetation in order to provide clear channel capacity for flood flows. In terms of the complaint received, in March 2024, Environment Southland's Resource Management Group was contacted by 2 external parties concerned about the works undertaken. As the notifications came into Environment Southland via our 24/7 pollution hotline, and I note that that's available on our website, of course. The matter was investigated by our resource management team, who followed the division's normal investigation protocols in order to form a recommendation as to the action required. While it was Environment Southland's Catchment Operations Group and its contractor which undertook the work, this matter was investigated exactly as it would have been if the works had been undertaken by another individual or entity. So it's important to note that the investigation was undertaken objectively and with no special treatment for Environment Southland as compared to others. And this is important to note as the public and stakeholders require confidence that Environment Southland does not have one rule for itself and one rule for others. As part of the process, once investigation was complete and an outcome was pending, this matter was considered by our enforcement recommendation panel. It's important to note that the level of response, as it's a standard part of an investigation, what this does is calibrates for consistency with other similar instances from other parties. The investigation and the potential enforcement outcome was also subject to legal review, which is important to ensure objectivity and legality in the level of enforcement response. Also, as an additional measure of robustness, we engaged an external independent peer reviewer of the investigation, and this was done through Environment Canterbury. Whilst the Operations Division was of the view that the physical works undertaken were a permitted activity, the investigating officer and those involved in the various checks and balances that I've described within the investigation process did not agree. Ultimately, abatement notice EAC-2024-2131 was issued on the 29th of August 2024 and required required the Chief Executive and therefore our Catchment Operations Division to cease and continue to cease drainage maintenance works within the Southland region, which is contrary to Rule 46 of the Regional Water Plan and Rules 61 and 73B of this proposed Southland Water and Land Plan, operative in part 2018. In terms of your question around lessons learned, changes made, so we felt that with respect to the process in terms of the assessment, the investigation, the assessment and the outcome, that the compliance response itself was assessed objectively, and this is through the enforcement response recommendation panel, through the use of an independent peer reviewer, and the additional step of a legal review as well. Obviously, it would be concerning if this type of situation was to reoccur in future, and it is important that the learnings that we've gone through are heeded. And so the following actions have been undertaken. Catchment operations were actually already formulating gravel consents required, and noting that they already have 6 in place for various catchments, and that this work has now been accelerated. And if you want further detail, of course, David can speak to that. When approaching any new work that may involve the removal of or distribution of gravel, staff evaluate the rules within our water and land plan and also refer to the code of practice to ensure that both the work and the work methodology comply with the relevant sections of our plans. They also now engage with our consents team to receive advice. We do note that we're very active, of course, across a number of sector groups, and we did check to ensure that our rules, whether they were very much out of step with other councils, and they are very much, accord with the direction that other councils have within their plans. But we are always looking to best practice examples, both in terms of rulemaking, investigation, and in undertaking river management, and look at how they can be adapted to a Southland context as necessary. As part of changing our practice in response to this abatement notice, there has been quite substantial engagement in a number of ways across our communities, including discussions with your good selves, discussions with catchment liaison committees, including the meeting that David attended last week, discussions with their chairs meeting. We've met with Federated Farmers as well, their Southland board, and discussions as part of community engagement events that were undertaken for our recent ratings review, as well as liaising with Te Ao Marama. And of course, staff remain happy to meet with any others if deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks, Hayley. I really appreciate that fulsome and comprehensive description of that, and I'm sure there'll be some questions. We've got one question from Jeremy first, then I see Nicole indicating for a start.
So, yeah, thanks, Hayley, for all that. But the abatement notice still stands. I said, if everybody's learnt and moved on, why have we still got an abatement notice over them? That should have been cleared up. It's been a year. We've got the procedures.
I'll leave that to David to answer, as he has work underway with respect to that, if that's all right, David. Not wanting to throw you under the bus there.
Yeah, got hit by it. We are doing work with to raise that. We have raised the issue. What we're doing a number of things around the compliance thing. So we do believe we aren't doing any work in relation to that notice that doesn't comply with those rules. And so we are doing ways around consenting and things like that. So we are working. We have raised it with the team about what evidence do I need to provide to, in actual fact, raise or lift the abatement notice.
Yeah, so David and I have been having discussions about what, in terms of to apply to withdraw the abatement notice, and how he might respond to write to me to request that withdrawal, so get that process moving.
The reality is, from the community basis, looking at it, is that people know, okay, they made a mistake, they know where they've made the mistake, they're not likely to do it again, because that's the idea of a sentence, and this has probably been sorted out for a while, so it's just a wee bit hard to understand why there's still an abatement notice. You've gone through a process, you've set the grounds, and they know the plan, so it should be removed. It's just a lingering thing that should be probably quite, sounds like.
I understand what you're saying, Jeremy. So what are the material things, the physical things we have to do at this council to get a conclusion of lifting of that notice? Just in brief, I guess there might be more complicated, but is there some material things, actions that we have to undertake?
We'll probably follow on with my question on the same topic. Is obviously we need to get a consent, then the abatement notice, and I'm a wee bit surprised it's taken this long to go through the process. Investigation's been done. Yes, we're not above the law. We have to follow our own things. Our staff just need to apply for the consent. I'm assuming they have. We're working through that. Once the consent's in place, abatement notice goes. So
I don't actually think we don't actually need a consent for the abatement notice to go, because we're modifying some of our work practices so that we don't impinge on those rules. And there are some areas where we want to do work that we will get a consent, but that's just an ongoing process. Probably put the responsibility back on me. I haven't given that evidence to regulatory so that they can do it. This is what we're doing, and that's why we won't be doing it. We're doing it, and so lifting the abatement notice, I'm sorry, there's just so many other things on our plate at the moment that I haven't. But again, I'm sure I could put an appropriate letter together to give to regulatory. I'm not sure who I sent it to, but
I'd be very happy to receive it. I'd be delighted, in fact. Or alternatively, I'm sure that Donna would be as well.
It looks as though we're moving forward. So in summary, David, you've got to show a material shift in practices of learnings for this to take place and demonstrate that. Okay.
And we've picked up lessons from, our rules are not much different to anywhere else in the country, and it's a day-to-day business of a whole pile of other catchment operations teams, and we're picking up what's happening up and down the
So
country.
just before I take Morris's question, I'd just like to say that that's a really good explanation of that. It is of high public interest around the region. Wherever I go, I get asked about it, and people tell me their version of what it means. So the committee members can go away to their own communities and you know exactly what the story is. So Morris.
Thank you. Two things, Mr. Chairman. Can Hayley's response be recorded in full for these minutes, please? I know that it's quite a long report, but we don't want to make the minutes longer than they should be, but it's very
It's
important,
important.
I believe, that should be the case.
With the question, yeah.
And
Michaela's got the full response, I think, hasn't she, Hayley? Yeah.
I think
That's correct, although I ad-libbed slightly when there was a sentence that didn't make, it was just out of order, so I'll just correct that to what I actually said and then send it to Michaela.
Thank you. And secondly, Rule 78 is, so if people remove the weeds, according to Rule 78, it's a permitted activity, so as Dave says. So whether the abatement notice is there or not doesn't really matter, provided that they do the work according to Rule 78, they can do it as a permitted activity, and if they don't, they have to get a resource consent, as Dave says. So I don't see the the status of the abatement notice as being really a problem, although it probably would be good to get rid of it, but it means that staff or anybody can do the work according to Rule 78.
the question was really designed around one story and one story only coming from this building, except for all the variations that I've heard over the last couple of months coming back to me. So those things are always helpful. So look, if there's nothing more on this question, I'll close that off and we'll move on if that's okay. So thanks very much, and thanks Hayley again and David for that and being so comprehensive in answering that question. Chairman and councillor reports. Cross that out. Right, we're going to move to reports. 9.1 annual report rabbit control activities under the targeted rate. I see Craig, you coming up. Right.
Slides. I thought I'd put some pictures up for you.
Thanks very much.
No sound.
Awesome, excellent. The floor is yours, Craig. Far away.
Yeah, so Southern Pest Eradication Society, I'm familiar how it's sort of come about, the banding of the destruction board, and then how we've gone into a contracting period with them currently. So you can see that's the area there. I think it's about 300,000 hectares. Yep, and just update on some of the control activities throughout the year. Just been constantly working. Obviously, the weather's been a bit rough, and we've still been out rabbiting with the dogs. So a couple of key parts is there's 2 new chairs have come on board, really active, which is really helpful for myself going forward. And also part of that is we've had one of the contractors who was mainly doing the night shooting up the northern part move on and be able to put in another contractor there with dogs, so we can actually do the day-to-day work and provide that extra service rather than just the night shooting. And it's actually been well received throughout the community there, which is fantastic. And also bringing in a bit of newer technology such as thermal night vision, get a bit more modern technology there, which is great with that new contractor. And also, obviously, we're familiar. We've had the new digital app for tracking all the data. So that's just showing up with hotspots and where the contract is actually working, which I can show you the next screen. And also throughout the winter, this last season, they had extra some funds here, so they brought in 2 new night shooters to help support the ground workers there as well, which is fantastic. So you can see, yep, so on here, I just showed the database there where we capture the data throughout the catchment, the different areas where the contractor is making work. Yep, so part of it, obviously being a contractor, I was quite keen to do a bit of auditing just to see how they're tracking, how they're getting on with whether they're keeping the rivers below 3 of them in clean scale as per our regional pest management strategy. So we did survey 10 sites, so they were sort of random sites there. What I was quite keen to do was choose sites where the contractors were doing the work, and obviously where they hadn't actually worked based on our map. So it's sort of and also the making sure that the habitat was rabbit prone as well. So give us a good gauge, and it's come across. It's going to do a bit more diversion to a bit more detail this season, because I like to better keep it going over a period of sort of maybe 5 years, so we get some good data coming in to see where it's tracking. So I think it's going to be key, just so we know whether it's working or not. There's obviously gaps. So yeah, also it's great to see also highlighted where landowners have been doing some work themselves as well. We have some good contact with those landowners and to see how the species program has been working. Yeah, so it's a bit more. Yeah, and also going forward, like I said, just keen to crack on with more monitoring and auditing framework. We might even look at a bit of formal landowner feedback. We're finding that it's with the auditors out there, it's a good opportunity to get some good real-time data back, see how it's tracking. And then with the app, currently in the past, we were capturing possums and hares with their data, and we haven't with the app since I brought that in. So I think GIS has just added that into the app, so we can capture that just out of curiosity. Also, there's always talk out there from Southern Pest Eradication Society and other community members around other opportunities to do a similar control. I know Otago, we're very interested in how the SPEARS framework sort of operating. So we'll just sort of, we may look at that for a bit of time, and then there's obviously a few little things that pop up around the place, such as out at Curio Bay. There's a built up area there. It's got a rabbit issue that's come through a request of some landowners, so we'll look at whether we can do something there going forward. So that's just a quick overview, some pictures for you. Any questions?
John's got the first question.
Thanks for that, Craig. What time are you coming in? I've been clocking a few phone calls from out Curio Bay way. Look, it's great work you guys are doing out there. Question, with like Curio Bay, is there an opportunity to go and do some trapping there, to do some site visits, I suppose, for around trapping, just to see what the numbers are like, to help decision making around how do we expand the program? And I guess question I have is there scope in the budget to look at what does regionally launching something like this for possums, rabbits and hares look like? The reason I raise it, we just had a trapper on our place at Menzies, and he just knocked on the door and said, I'm just doing some fur, mate. 300 possums in 10 days. I wouldn't have believed him if the neighbour hadn't poisoned 180 in a week in his place. So things are exploding out there, and this model works. And how can we, is there scope in our budgets to look at how can we model this up?
Well, yeah, currently not in the rabbit budget. We'll have to talk to the forest security team. However, I think there is opportunity for the community-led projects. I know there's a number of different models throughout New Zealand that they have successfully done pest control. And obviously it's usually for an outcome, like the same Kiwi, so that gives them that driver. And I think that unless we can actually get some budget from the council, the ratepayers, or differential rate or something like that the community might want to tap into. Otherwise, because if you're looking into pest control, it is for possums, it can be it is expensive to do the control and keep the control going. So you need to have not just the initial lockdown, but a plan going forward long term and achieve. Obviously, there's that TB factor in there as well. Yes. But it's like anything. So, I mean, the good example of the rabbit program is once you've got possums, once you stop doing something, then that's when you have the problem. If you keep going, maintaining it, it's where we'll see the benefits.
Well, that's very good. Can you just clarify, how many possums did you say it was off
It was just under 300.
of your property? So we're talking a dairy platform.
9 hectare bush block in there.
There's not, I was going to say there's not too much ineffective area usually on a dairy platform, so that's quite remarkable, isn't it?
Willows down on the rivers.
The mature
huge
possums will stay where they are unless they're forced out. So we've just got a question from Eric, Paul, and then Morris.
Yeah, mine's largely been covered by John, but this area was one of the last residual areas of TB, and now whilst there are no movement control farms that I'm aware of in the area, it has been a residual area, and someone needs to have the discussion. Possums are there, and you need to be aware and see what can be done. So I'll just leave it there. Thanks, Eric. Paul.
I was just, with regards to rabbits locally in our area, there's a couple of in the township, a really large burrow. And what community groups can help? When you've got large areas as big as this room where there's multiple holes coming out, and a lot of it is in TA reserves, and there's one around TA assets in the water in Tiana, also around dock reserves around the lakefront. A hell of a lot that we could be doing, but we can't just rely on Environment South. Is there any?
You do need a professional rabbiters for that.
Yeah.
It's different control methods you can.
Is there any other methodology we can get through to the property owners to see whether they can help or assist?
Yes, but you mean the property owner themselves, or
like the TAs and Department of Conservation?
I know some of the TAs like would do a bit of control in the Wyndham Township. Yeah. It's usually like if you depends because when they do some control here in the cemetery and that, so they close it down and they do the night shooting. So it's just really having a plan, making a plan around it. It can be quite tough when you're working in built up areas. This for the habitat that it's going to be, and B, you can't use certain tools. There's especially with the night vision these days and air rifles. There's some good technology out there. It's usually I'd recommend leaving up to the experts in that sort of scenario.
I think where these are, they don't. These burrows are they're very close to property, very close to public lands.
That's tough use.
They don't fit within our rules. Trying to eliminate them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Morris.
Oh, thank you. Yes, in response to John's question before about it, I see Dave's just left. He wasn't we had a report about probably at least years ago, probably more, on how we needed to have a contractor managed system to keep possum numbers down to that 5% residual trap capture level, which is needed to keep the TB control under control and also ensure that biodiversity problems aren't exacerbated. So there was a report. I don't know what's happened to it, but I think that's what we need to do. We need to follow up on that and commit the resources to employing a contractor-controlled system rather than one that relies on landowners, because they, get the initial help and then, sorry about this, but they, think it's all right, don't bother to follow it up. So it needs to be driven by this council. The cost, mainly needs to fall back on the landowners, but there is a way.
Spears model works well for that reason.
There's a way of doing it. He's dead now. We could perhaps ask him to talk about that.
Maybe,
Yeah, and Morris is bang on, because that's what we've found in the possum control area. Sure, you set it all up for them, do the initial, do the base stations out, and then it's up to the landowners to do the baiting. Whereas what happens is they're running a business, they get busy, they put it down, the last thing to do. And then also, you got a professional there that knows what he's doing, knows the place to target, and it's keeping them in check.
because we have,
Mr. Chairman, can I
Craig.
ask, where is that
So-
report at?
we have had a report back to about the PCAs here and some concerns around some failures of some of those areas, namely to do with what you've just described. People go, oh, I don't think there's any possums there now. They got them all last
Get them
time.
down low and they don't see them.
And then John's example of the 100, all those possums. So is that something you could please bring to us in the future? And let's have a discussion around, are we currently failing for their PCAs or are we not? I don't know, Dave, you want to comment on that, please?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was on a phone call. So I missed part of the conversation, but
Well, we've gone from rabbits, we've skewed from
Yeah.
rabbits from the meantime to possums, but we'll go back to rabbits, I'm sure.
so in terms of possums, it's no surprise that some areas are experiencing an increase. I wouldn't like to use the term failing, but we did highlight that to council a couple of times, probably last year, that areas are increasing, and particularly outside of the PCA where there's been no TB control happening for the last decade. It's inevitable that possums breed and they will increase. So we are signalling that to a lot of farmers, but also reminding them that since 1996, it's been landowner responsibility, but a lot of landowners don't either accept that or understand that or remember that. So a lot of farmers are finding out now that if you don't tackle something at a low population, it just gets away on you and costs a lot of money. And we're also finding that with the feral deer situation at the moment as well.
Well, I think, could I say from this committee that bring something back to us, would that be appropriate, just to see where we're sitting at the moment and if there's some actions we could undertake to heighten those responsibilities of those landowners post knockdown or something along those lines? Because, maybe the word failure is too strong, but if we're on a trajectory now that shows that things aren't going well, we need to, like you said, we need to intervene now.
Yeah, we are on that journey. We had a workshop with council last year. At that point, it was to go back to the executive. That hasn't really happened, and we're sort of waiting as a post result of the restructure, I suppose, to have the opportunity to sit down with the executive and lay it out to them as well, and look forward to the LTP planning. Because to go to a contracting model, I think you might have mentioned that before, we're looking at least $4 million just to control the PCA annually, and that's only tackling probably 40% of the region. The other 60%, you're talking 10 million probably.
No, I guess that's the question, is the PCA model what we're looking for? And it's, I guess that's the question, is how do we're talking about responsibilities and that, well, I think we might need to really look at how do we build a whole system that just guarantees it's got longevity. I'm just not too sure we're quite there at the moment, even with the options of getting PCAs out there.
So, part of that report that we looked at a couple of years ago now with North Island councils, the result of that was highly in favour of going to the contracting model, as was the TV program. We know it works. It was highly successful. Leaving it to landowner responsibility, no disrespect to the farmers in the room, it's not working as well as it should. You're farming, you're not pest control experts. So,
They need to come and monitor it.
So a lot of councils in North Island have turned to the contracting model, and And what we're doing this year is keenly following how they've done that, how it's going, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel either. So we're talking with Lucy, the GM, we're hoping to have staff and possibly councillors travel up to one or two of the councils that have made that change to get their experience.
Alistair, you've got a question?
Yeah, I think that Nicol was before me and he might.
Oh, where, Nicol?
Right.
Okay. Yes, you are.
Yes, look, you just on this discussion and, you know, the rabbit control thing, we had a community come to us and said we want to continue it, and moving onto the possum one, I've had discussions because I probably 14 years ago I went up to, might have been longer, we went up to have a look at the Hawke's Bay, and we came back and started doing things here. But in recent times, the Hawke's Bay themselves, things fell over there, and what happened? They got TP'd again. So there's quite a link there, but the contractor model is the efficient way of doing it. At the moment, we still have the option you can do your own, but we know that doesn't particularly work that well. But there's also a cost, because I've asked quite can we extend PCAs, and as staff with funding we've got are reasonably stretched. At the moment, the possum fur, there's a lot of people out there who will do it because it's a good return. That won't always be the case, but we know, we mentioned feral deer, possums, pigs, we're getting an explosion in a lot of areas, particularly when there's a lot more forestry ground. It's a good haven for them, but it will be it's something that the next council are going to have to grapple with. But it will be an LTP thing. If you want us, you're going to have to go to the community and say, if you want us to do more, you're going to have to pay a bit more too. Quite interesting, an item coming up is in that Waikawa area where some of that funding, and it's on the boundary with Otago, and that possums aren't on their list. And 2,775 possums have been removed in a reasonably short time. You know, a lot of bait stations have been put in, so it's certainly an issue.
Yeah, can I just ask you, Nicol, with your experience, and you've been around a bit and seen a bit, you still think the most efficient model is for this council to create the platform for the work to be done, as opposed to going out and doing the work ourselves? Should we be encouraging more of these groups to action themselves and supporting and creating that platform? What's your view on that?
I think having a contractor that's doing it, if you go way back, we used to do it, and that was some ill feeling when the Osprey or the predecessor took it away from regional councils. It's got to be the most efficient system, and if you've got somebody locally who can do it, but I think everybody's got to buy into it up, because otherwise, I'll do it someday myself, and that's where it falls down. But I think that model, and it's similar to what's going on with in East and South and with that rabbit control. But there is also the opportunity for the possums at the moment, and there's people who are making quite good money out of it. So it's a short-term fix, but I still think that model of encouraging PCAs, doing the knockdown, but it's got to be an efficient system when you move on to the next area. And otherwise, that was the first thing that struck me in Hawke's Bay a long time ago, was we come back and said, look, it's got to be an efficient system. We're not going to spend 10 million on possums. The ratepayers won't go with it. So do the knockdown, set things up. It's almost got to be a self-running system after that, unless there's issues. And I think then you can move on to extra areas. So there's a lot of areas out there now that I think would be interested if we could put that on the table.
No, very good. Thanks for that. And for Morris and then Al.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we need an action point here to ask the staff to prepare a report, basically what we did before, the recommendation that the contractor model is what we should be doing, and we should be putting it into our annual plan and long-term plan, and deciding who should pay for it. And that, but we really need to do that. I think it's sort of fallen, as Dave said, it's sort of fallen by the wayside a bit, so we just need to reactivate that and make sure that it gets into our planning processes for next year.
I think that's a great suggestion. Al, and then Paul.
Yeah, there's been two old fellas getting around this province reasonably well in the last 8 days. We've got feedback all the way that the possums are just on their way up. And I also read that Molesworth Station has now got the TB. starting to come in there. So my line of thought would be that you work out could you please work out what the best way of doing this is? But I'm sure Osprey must be sitting on a hot seat and want to get some money out here. That's the TP outfit, I might have the wrong name, but they must be every Monday morning when they go into work and think, well, there's no TP in this country, it's going to come. And we should be collecting the money first for our province.
Okay, Paul?
Thank you. Just getting back to this, I've been dealing with a ratepayer or a person for the last period that I've been in council asking the same question, and he raised concerns about increasing numbers of possums. And back at a meeting in the 10th of October 2023, he was asking and was agreed that an action sheet be implemented at each meeting regarding biosecurity and pest control. And then he also, at a meeting at Distinction Hotel on the 28th of March 2024, he moved a motion that an action sheet be implemented. So the public are out there wanting more information. And way back then, he's raising the issue with with our chief executive and chairman, and wanting replies. And it was quite a long process for me to get some sort of replies through that. So we're talking 2 years, nearly 2 years, he's been raising these issues. And it would be good to have, especially when he's asking for action sheets to the community during catchment meetings with regards to biosecurity, pest control, that long ago, and he was raising the issue of increased activity of possums that is now becoming a live subject right now. So everything that he was asking for, we're all talking about now, so we need to get on and do it.
Yep, that's a good timely reminder. So last question with Jeremy, and then
Just quickly, Craig, the regional pest management plan. Do we need more teeth in there in regards to obviously more forestry and bits and pieces, shut-abouts and all these things coming into play? Is there enough? Because they must have pest management plans, I take it from the forest owners, is that correct? I always thought they sort of.
In regards to what pests though?
Oh, well, I take the pest and forestry, we're dealing with possums. But that's the question, have we got enough bite in those plans?
We feel we do. I mean, they're typically a landowner, just like any farmer. So they're bound to the same RPMP rules for possums and rabbits.
Yeah, so there's enough bite in there to actually push the issue.
Yeah, there is. And most forestries have actually increased their efforts over the last 4 or 5 years that we're dealing with, partly because they're coming to a point where they're replanting forests, so they've got a lot of damage occurring. So they're very keen to do pest control at that point. But they're also realising they need to be a good neighbour as well. So.
So even though we're talking about this, we need to do more, there is actually enough bite in some of the rules we have to actually enforce that too.
Yeah,
Doing plantings and
the only
things.
place you can't is the PCL, the public conservation land.
Right.
They're not part of the RPMP.
well, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks. I'd just like to say that I think there's further actions coming out that what Morris suggested, and probably around the LTP, as have a re-look at this and how we're effectively treating these issues. And I'd just like to say that area down there is a reason, I think, Eric, you might correct me, was that one of the last rabbit canneries to close down in Fort Rose, Otara?
They all closed in 1952.
52, but there was one
There
down.
was one there, there was
in
another one
Otara.
at Matara, they were spread around.
Yeah, so it is recognised as a hotbed for rabbits and has been for quite some time, isn't it? Yeah. So thanks very much, Craig.
I moved the report.
Okay, we've got a seconder for that report, please. Thanks, Jeremy. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thanks very much, Craig. We'll move on to the next.
We'll put in a bit about the community actions throughout the country that have got the community events, that have community run.
Yeah, definitely.
Give you a broad range as well.
We want some options and things to look at.
Yeah.
We need to change. So look, we'll just keep moving along. We are under a bit of time pressure. There's another meeting coming in and there's some councillors have to move away. Be across the other side of town at 1 p.m. So next we've got the Walding Conifers in Southland, and Jolie
It's online.
is online.
Yep.
So there you go, Jolie. How you doing?
Hi, kia ora everyone. Sorry, I
You've got
can't be there. I'm in Christchurch at a Walding meeting, so.
Well, we should be up to date with everything. So just fire ahead, please.
We're
so I
running
guess
out of time, Jolie, so we'll do it quick as we can.
Yep. So you've got the report in front of you. I've just got a couple of slides. I thought I'd just share, just to kind of, I guess, help with understanding the situation. Just a quick visual here of Douglas fir invading. This is conservation land up at West Dome, ultramafic soils. Yeah, just to kind of show you the effect that Douglas fir wildings are having on some of our environments. Next, hold on, sorry. Why is Here we go. Cool, thank you. I've just got a couple of visuals here. In the report, it talks about the different types of wildings, with the legacy commercial forests and then kind of the plantations after 2018. I've just put a demonstration up here of the legacy, so that's mainly Epinus contorta. If we started investing fully now, in 10 years' time, we should be, reducing funding significantly. And over 30 to 50 years' time, that funding and control options should almost disappear, as all seed sources can be removed and all wildings could be removed if funded correctly. However, the Douglas fir issue that has started in the last kind of 10, 15 years, because we can't remove any of the seed sources, these costs will continue into 50 plus years, just doing the maintenance to control wildings and protect both our kind of public and private land, and to maintain a lot of our private high country farms throughout Southland. I've got a bit of a visualization here just to understand the infestations. The green is dockland, and I've just kind of put that on there just to show a bit of the difference between the public and private kind of impacts. Yellow is where infestations are mainly pine species, mainly Pinus contorta with a small amount of radiata and mugo. And the blue illustrates the Douglas fir wilding issues. And if I presented this picture 10, 15 years ago, there would be very little blue in it, and it would have been all kind of yellow with their pine species. But now the blue Douglas fir is starting to take over, and especially in the top right corner of the picture, we've got a lot of Douglas fir wildings showing up. Now, part of that you will see in the right kind of right corner, there's two circled areas there. That is the Mid-Dome and Flagstaff management units that the Mid-Dome Trust have been working on since 2006. There is now Douglas fir all through that country and into areas where the Trust has handed back land to landowners because the contorta is under control, with some of those seed sources, some of the wildings flying 10 to 14 kilometres from the closest seed source. The red also indicates what the national funding is currently paying for, I guess, in regards to wilding. Nationally, there's 10 million. Southland is currently getting about 660,000 of that. However, Mid-Dome alone, actually for this financial year, almost needs $4 million to actually get ahead of the program and continue to maintain what work was started 3-4 years ago with the Jobs for Nature increase in funding. And overall, DOC, forestry, private landowners, New Zealand Transport Authority, Pāmu Landcorp are doing a lot of wilding control themselves. But overall of Southland, we are losing the battle currently because there is just not enough resources being put at it, or enough, I guess, prioritisation being put towards the wilding situation. So I guess landowners are facing this. This is a station up the Nevis Road. Behind me is funded because it is within the Mid-Dome area, whereas these wildings in front of me are not funded. These are all Douglas fir with a few Corsican, with the seed source likely to be the shout-abouts, the woodlots, and the forestry that is up the Upper Matara Kinnard Fairlight area and sitting up above here. This farmer is just an example of many in the area that is having to tackle this problem themselves, as there's no public government funding going towards it. And I guess the big thing is, you know, if they don't keep up on control and this whole area here, it might not take long and this land will be completely unproductive. And I guess behind it is DOC conservation land as well. Current legislation rules only don't apply to the seed source or the polluters in some ways. They only apply to the landowners where the wildings end up. There's limited government support. Our RPMP, Regional Pest Management Plan, rules aren't really up to standard to kind of control or help out in this way. I've just got a quick couple of slides here just to show the change from, this is the Takatimi Mountains. We kind of, I guess, sitting above the Waiau River, looking towards the Aparima side. The Cheviot faces are over here, which is a legacy site that had Contorta and Mugo planted it on it. This is ABBA, so aerial basal bark data from 2016 of the trees that were controlled. And the white shows the pine species, Contorta and Mugo, and you'll see a tiny amount of Douglas fir down in this corner. Fast forward to 2024, when once again aerial basal bark application was done. The yellow is now the Contorta Mugo issue, but you will see just that difference between 2016 and 24, how much Douglas fir is starting to pour in. And there's still a significant amount here on those northern faces that wasn't controlled as it was too dense, as well as all along kind of the bases of the land here. This is only showing the DOC data. Private land data I do not have for this area, but it does show the huge amount of trees that is starting to come from Douglas fir seed sources. And of course, costs have gone up 10 times. And just another quick one here, just showing that shout-abouts do have an impact. These are pictures mainly from the Te Anau Basin. So that's all my slides that I've got there. Is there any questions, I guess?
Yeah, thanks for that, Jolie. We'll just open up for some questions, just noting your time constraints there, Morris.
Well, it's clearly a very serious problem. Can we do anything to comply to make the people that, you know, grow these things commercially to control them? I know it's very difficult, but clearly what is happening now isn't working. It's a huge cost. I don't think the public should have to pay this huge cost because it's caused by somebody, you know, by a private organisation. It seems to me that we have to change the pest management plan somehow. What options do we really have, Jolie, so that we can fix this without the public having to pay millions and millions of dollars?
I guess that's where we start. Oh, David can go.
I was just saying on page 18 of the report, Jolie's got some recommended next steps, and one of them is actually working with all the agencies. I was interested this afternoon, we're going to see STC, and they have asked for a briefing on wildings as part of our briefing. I am going to steal some of Jolie's slides just to put it in there, but yeah, I don't think it's too big for one agency. You're no different to pretty much half the South Island is losing the battle against wilding. So what we're doing at the moment's not working, so we need to do something else. But I don't think it's bigger than Environment Southern. But it's all the agencies have got to do something together. And I think Jolie's got 5 bullet points there. 5 bullet points there of sort of recommendations, noting that none of them are funded.
Yeah, I just would add to that, Morris, that they are put in by commercial entities, well known about their wilding risks.
Yeah.
So that was known.
Yeah.
To talk about the Pinus contorta and Mongo so many years ago by the catchment board being put up there on West Dome. That information may not have been known to them there at that time. I can't comment on that, but the risks have been well known. So it's a different situation than. Okay, Nicole. Oh, no, Eric and then Nicole first, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the most sobering reports I've read for some time. And we're losing the battle, and it's not only us, it's most of the South Island, as Dave said. And in some places, Larches, you can also add to that list, particularly up around Tekapo and Pukaki. So there's some things that need to happen immediately, which is limit where these trees can be planted. I'm not sure that the exacerbator can be made to pay when I read in the report that seed sources have been known to travel 14k. So it's very hard to pinpoint which forest they might have actually came from to ask for some kind of response financially to control the problem. One of the things that interests me as well, and Scion is working on this, is producing trees which are mules and they don't produce fertile seeds. And I've ordered some seed for larch for a project I've got going in Central Otago because I think they look nice. But and how available that is to the public and how far down the line. But that is an option which may be able to facilitate limiting the further. But the immediate problem we've got is, as Dave has said, is getting everybody on board or we've lost the battle. And I understand anecdotally that Jim Ward left Molesworth because he said in 20 years this place will be gone. That's how urgent it is.
That's right. So the money's got to be spent up front to.
Yeah,
to
but
stop
viable means as well. So
yeah. So with the Douglas fir, I understand identifying the seed source is virtually impossible because of the cloned nature of the seed. Okay, that's good. Any other questions? We've got Nicole here.
Look, we've had conversations with government ministers. They're aware of the problem. Money is obviously tight at the moment. Andrew Hoggard is pretty hot on this one, and he's going to continue to push for more funding. But the point we've all been making is the government committed quite a bit of money in shovel-ready time. It'll all be wasted if we can't keep the control up, and it's 2 or 3 years down the track, and it's just about gone. And so it's very urgent. As we can't do it on our own, but we have to have a united front to work with government on this one because it's no small problem financially or everything else. Some of the drone spraying is looking quite promising, but it needs the finance to actually get it before it's gone. Really.
Yeah, and look, just in the matter of time, I'll just finish this up, but thanks very much for that, Nicole. The key difference here is that it's a known threat in the commercial sense, the Douglas fir. So this is a new major threat on our hills and threatening our landscape values that we all hold so dearly around north and south. And so I think it's going to be it will be an ongoing issue, and I think it will be a priority for a new council coming in to look at this stuff.
as an action, can we get a report back from the response that Dave gets out of SDC this afternoon so that we know whether we've got more work to do there?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we did that West Dome picture there. That was the day that we did host the mayor and two other councillors up there too. So there's been follow-up from that. So thanks very much for that, Jolie. We'll just have to keep moving on. Appreciate that. Righto. Someone's received that report. Yes. Thanks, Paul. Second that. Thanks, Nicole. All those in favour? Aye. That's carried. Ella. I will remind, we've taken our time early on in the meeting, so we're under some time constraints too. So if we could.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to speak to the Whakaminoti Waituna update. I'll take the report as read. I guess there's been a bit of chat about Whakaminoti Waituna recently, so open to any discussions. Just of particular interest, the nature-based financing pilot. There's good movement in that space, and we're involved in several sort of initiatives across the country where we're looking at partnering with the experts who understand this landscape and are able to help sort of support us as we look to both what sort of international accrediting system we might look to, but also the actual sort of data and science that we need to start gathering and ensure that we've got the right baseline and then being able to inform the process from there on. There's a lot of interest obviously from the community. We've been involved in conversations with some catchment groups as the chair, so really looking to be able to support and also communicate the role of those nature-based solutions and the I guess the speed at which we might come about to establish those. Obviously the Webster Block discussion was a good one that happened here around the council, and so we're progressing the need to ensure the protection of that land into the future, and it's happening through the lawyers. And finally, just introducing a slightly new initiative along the same lines of the nature-based solutions, but looking at the blue economy and restoring peatlands across the country, one of which we're a pilot for. So that is using Environment South and Land. At the moment, it's just a desktop exercise. Science team are aware of it happening, and they are also taking part in other projects to look at how we might ensure that peatland is, I guess, that there's opportunities to restore that peatland into the future too.
Okay. Ella, yes, I was on the call with trust members talking about the nature credits. Fantastic background information, and I think it's working as we hoped, is that your group, with the resources that you have, been able to transfer information to landowners through Thriving South and through the catchment group. So I'm really pleased about that. Is there any, we've got a quick round of questions at all for that report by Ella? Okay. Nicola.
As you can see from this quite comprehensive report, there's a lot of leading edge research going on, especially with on the nature credits, but also now with the peatland. If we can land some of this stuff, it's got huge implications. And, there's some risk, but the work that's going to be done, I'm pretty confident will benefit the whole province eventually.
Good. Thanks very much. Well, okay, I would like to move that. Have we got a second for Ella's report? Let's hear it. All those in favour? Aye. That's carried. So next item, please. Slow the flow.
Which one at the bottom?
Thank you. So I'm excited to say that the Miriku Slow the Flow phase 1 project was completed at the end of July, and as of last week we sent in the final report to the Ministry for the Environment and thanked them very much for the funding provided to us for this project. The report that I provided you in the agenda was not quite at completion of the project. So I'm taking the opportunity just to give you a little bit more of an insight, but realising that you're very short on time, we're almost more than half an hour over time, I will shorten the presentation slightly, just to let you know that there's a muffin talk next Wednesday, where I've got a bit more time to delve into the details of this project, and hopefully it will be informing future work as I'll get into. So taking the project as read, or the paper, sorry. So the Muriaki Slow the Flow project or program of work was a 2-year program funded by the Ministry for the Environment, and as part of that team we had members from Te Ao Marama, people from across the organisation, and a whole range of people. There were many hours spent, as well as dozens of meetings around interdisciplinary research, looking at how we pilot this work to inform future decision making. In terms for Te Ao Marama, as tangata whenua Ngaita who hold ahika and mana whenua over the area, they hold knowledge of this land. The headwaters and upper reaches of the Waikaia River reflect the dynamic landscape of this nature of this landscape, marked by frequent flash flooding. Whānau speak of the valley once filling with water from maunga to maunga, or mountain to mountain, a reflection of the landscape's historical patterns. And many of you will be aware, we've known about the flooding risks to Gore Matoto for a long time. This is the floods of 1913, where Neil Macmillan was talking about it as the chief engineer back in 1973, highlighting that no matter how high the flood banks are or how large the capacity of the channel to carry water, sooner or later there will be a flood larger than a scheme is designed to handle. And we got very close to it in 2020, where we had 4,500 people evacuated from the town of Gore. You only need to talk to people who've lived here for a while, and they'll tell you how much faster the water is moving from the mountains to the sea through our catchments. We have changed the landscape for reasons for development and urban sprawl, but we've also built on places where we know that the flooding is creating huge problems. So through some really amazing new technology, we know a lot more than we did. We can model what we think those different, because each flood is different, and the impact of each of those different floods. So this is some of the flood risk modelling that's been developed for the Matoto River. And it shows what's likely to happen in a 1 in 50 and a 1 in 100. And just for comparison, the recent floods up in Motueka were a 1 in 100 year flood. So we know that they're coming, and with a changing climate, this is going to increase. So the current projections are that what we're currently seeing is a 1 in 100 by the end of the century is more likely to be a 1 in 20, 25 year flood. So we need to think differently about how we're looking to manage these flood risks. And that was the opportunity we had for Muriaki Slow the Flow to ask what if. What if we thought differently? What if we were to include different options for how we might manage this flood risk? So fortuitously, at about the same time we were asking these questions, the Ministry for the Environment was looking at across the globe, particularly to Europe and North America, where there has been a lot of work on the ground over the last couple of decades to reposition nature-based solutions in the catchments to slow the flow. There's also been a lot of work across New Zealand looking at how to use floodplain management plans to inform future infrastructure decisions and ensuring that we're spending the money in the right place. And so Slow the Flow was born. And as we said, the opportunity to test different mitigations, desktop exercise, but also to socialise this idea of how we might think and do differently in the future. The project had four objectives. Focused on the Upper Matoda catchment, the program tested how a collaborative approach bringing technical, cultural and place-based knowledge together could assess the potential for nature-based solutions to reduce flood risk and improve catchment-wide wellbeing. So we needed to foster a collaborative approach. We wanted the process to make sure that it was informing future climate adaptation through a range of tools and processes. We wanted to run the process and test these tools to ensure that we understood the breadth of what this work would require. And finally, we wanted to build capability and capacity, and that was part of a national team of 21 projects across the country, but obviously also the Mirihiku Southland team is now much bigger than it was previously, with people who hadn't necessarily spent a lot of time thinking about flood risk mitigation and how it applied to land use. We looked at a range of different options for mitigations, but we were really keen to make sure that we went with where there was already interest in the community. And so these four mitigations, including woody forest regeneration, tussock, wetlands and detainment bunds, were all things that were already being talked about, particularly by catchment groups, but obviously in the freshwater space in terms of contaminant reduction mitigations as well. And so in order for us to achieve this work in a 2-year time frame, we needed to work pretty quickly across how we were going to build what ended up being a nature-based solutions scenario. So we engaged a range of experts to get a high-level understanding of what kind of flow reduction these sorts of mitigations might produce, and built a nature-based scenario around that. So the first three that you see up there were all above the floodplain. The detention bunds were above the floodplain whilst being in the upper sort of breadth of the floodplain. And then finally, we looked at the effects of reinstating floodplain and what kind of impact that would have on flow reduction as well. So those were the five nature-based solutions that we looked at. So this scenario was compared to how floods currently work and flow through the catchment. So there was a business as usual scenario compared to a nature-based solution one. So there's a lot more detail about this rural Northern Water Tool prototype in the paper, so I won't go into it in a lot of detail, but ultimately by running those two scenarios through a hydrological model and then a flood risk model and the NIWA's riskscape model, we were able to inform a holistic understanding of what kind of benefits these nature-based solutions might bring about. So the Northern Water Tool really helped to highlight that beyond flood risk, it also provided benefit to things like contaminant reduction, which then impacted farm systems and provided some benefit there, as well as biodiversity, biosecurity kinds of impacts, and then into social benefits and benefits and economic benefits also. The paper describes the outcome of the avoided costs that are created by the nature-based solutions, which is incredibly helpful. It's not a space that we spend a lot of time looking at. By doing one thing, how are we preventing a cost somewhere else? So it was a really insightful process to be able to do that. So in terms of findings, 4 areas were highlighted as being incredibly beneficial. So using a dual knowledge system and working closely with Ngāi Tahuki Mirihiku was really valuable. The baseline for the feasibility study was built using two complementary approaches, grounded in Mataranga Māori, and the other in Western science. This brought together different ways of understanding the catchment's history and dynamics and linking cultural values, lived experiences, and scientific evidence into a shared picture that could inform decisions. So the ability to test those tools in an operational sense was something that we hadn't had an opportunity to do previously. So it's really bringing that high level policy and planning kind of work that we've done closely with Ngāi Tahu Mirihiku previously, but bringing it into a place-based decision-making approach.
How much more have we got there, Ella? We're really constrained.
Couple more slides. Sorry, I thought I had 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, I know, look, things got away at the start.
Fair enough. So there were benefits created in terms of reducing the flow by the nature-based solution scenario. Early modelling suggests that well-designed combination of nature-based solutions can reduce peak flood flows by about 10 to 12% across the range of scenarios. So what was really important though was that the location, design and sequencing of those nature-based solutions matters. So we need to make sure we really understand what we're doing and have a plan before we head into it. I just spoke to the fact that there's value beyond flood mitigation and that the economic modelling was incredibly valuable to help us better understand what kind of investment would be valid. And finally, the collaboration and communication. I wish we'd done more of this. We had some really good opportunities to get out and talk to catchment groups with an interdisciplinary group. As I said, people that aren't necessarily always thinking about flood risk, but how that could integrate with other work that's happening across the organisation. And in terms of communication, hopefully soon we will have the story map that will help to bring this narrative together about the Slow the Flow project, but also how it informs future work. In terms of next steps, we will be further building on a shared model of leadership, resourcing and delivery by Ngāi Tahu Mirihiku. Strategic, well-planned and well-executed engagement and communication, continued collaboration across disciplines and sectors, and expanding the application of insights from the headwaters of the catchment to other parts of Mirihiku Southland. So in terms of what those next steps look like, you will have heard a lot about the Tranche 2 project. We've agreed to put forward this funding if it becomes available from government. The plan here is to ensure that the capital works that's being proposed in the Gore area is complemented by a wider understanding of floodplain management. So where we're talking about an options analysis here in milestones 2 and 3, those options have got to include all understandings of across hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure, and also your non-structural elements such as emergency management services, sorry. So we need to ensure that we're fit for the future so the floodplain management program of work would sit across the Tranche 2 funding project and planning. To do that, we would use something like a DAP process, which has been trialled and tested internationally and nationally to identify those options and pathways. But what's really important is we still yet to make decisions about how we're going to engage our community through that process. So there's a whole range of ways we could do that, and yeah, we as a council and as a region with our TA partners need to better understand that. Finally, I just want to thank all the people involved intimately in this project and those more widely for taking part. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Ella. Just before we go to questions, I just like river management is an extremely hot topic. I spent 2 hours on the phone last night talking to 2 separate people around it. And I get confronted in social situations with people that say they have a simple solution to a complex set of problems that we're dealing with when it comes to river management. They say, just get the gravel out of the river. So we hear it, we know it. So when we're talking about nature-based solutions, are we talking predominantly from mid to upper catchment mitigations? Because there is 2 views to river management. It's quite clear that we've got one view that is very staunch around command and control, and then we have another view of letting the rivers run. But there seems to be a huge area in the middle that those things can step towards the centre and they can all take place. So my view is it's not about just doing one thing and then going home and feeling happy about ourselves. We actually have to do all those things on the horizon for community safety. So it would aid me in my discussions with people to, if I can talk about mid to upper catchment nature-based solutions in that context. Could you have a wee comment on that before we go to John's question?
Good summary, Chair. Of the 5 nature-based solutions, as I mentioned, 3 of them were specifically up in the top of the catchment, and the reason for that was there's a lot more opportunity to use, I guess, land that isn't currently seen as highly productive, and therefore it was an opportunity to head in that direction, and it was already being spoken about by the community. There are always going to be opportunities to put those same nature-based solutions in areas where there's more productive land, but that would be very different to the current way that we manage our rivers and our floodplains. So the need to transition from a very command and controlled way of working as we currently do to a different way of working requires planning to ensure that we're not putting people and infrastructure in harm's way, but also that people can continue to support their livelihoods along that path. So there are some great examples nationally, internationally, where that has happened, and all the possible tools need to be considered. So whether that's purchasing the land, whether it's moving infrastructure, and it's all dependent on the size of the event, of course, right? So as I mentioned, what is currently a 1 in 100 by the end of the century, which is really, if you think about it, when my children will likely be retiring, it's going to be a 1 in 25 type event. Yep. So the pace at which we move needs to consider that, the risks that that are trying to be minimised, and what appetite there is for ongoing risk.
Okay, I just trying to ascertain where we stand as a council between those 2 scenarios. Do we sit in the middle, or are we moving to a nature-based solution? So that's a question for another time. We're running out of time. But
I would just say it's not 2 scenarios, it's an actually integrated scenario. And Ella had quite a good slide that she put up the Mataura that actually had all those tools. There will be retreat, there will be some engineering solution, there will be slowing the flow solutions, there will be giving the river back, there will be, and they're probably not enough tools to deal with what we're talking about for our, not sure about our children, but our grandchildren, maybe your children, but my grandchildren, to actually deal with it. And you just saw that slide we put up to ICC. They were saying with sea level rise, a 1 in 100 year flood today is going to be a 1 in 1 year flood in 100 years' time. So, that's how big it's going to move. But they are got a slight complication of sea level rise as well.
We'll move to John. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Chair. Live beside the river, the Tarra River, so appreciate everything that's been discussed. And we talk about increased flows. We've seen increased flows and pressures. I guess my question over what duration, because I would say from 10 years ago, I've seen the river improve, and from 5 years ago, it has improved again. So I guess I'm just making sure we are taking into account what has happened in recent times to make sure that we're managing that. But also, I was in South America recently, and you mentioned Europe and you mentioned North America, been in those places too in the last 12 months. South America stood out to me. They are doing everything around slowing the flow and just small projects everywhere you look, on farms, on the side of roads. There's no straight channeling on the side of the roads. The grader comes in and does a cutout so the water's slowed down. To me, Brazil had the best example out of anywhere I've seen in the last 12 months of travelling around just dealing with that localised flooding. And I can just see how that could be implemented so easily in New Zealand. And so, yeah, I'd implore that you potentially look at what they're doing. Because they get a 1.6 metre rainfall in 6 months a year.
Yeah, so the many interventions is definitely been highlighted as being the way to go. It's also a very different way of thinking about how to manage flooding and will require a different group of decision makers and processes than what we currently use. That's what we're talking about, needing to diversify that.
Good suggestion, Jeremy.
Just quickly around the report, will we get a copy of the report? In
Happy
due
to-
course, or when
Happy
will
to
we?
send it out. It's a rather chunky, there's a 20-page summary being developed to make it a slightly lighter reading, and then of course the story map. But yeah, happy to.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very much for that. Thank you, Ella. We've got someone to move.
Happy to move. We received the report, Mr. Chairman.
Someone to second that. Thanks, John. All those in favour? Aye. Chair, thanks very much. Item 9.5, freshwater. Okay. Carl, Sam.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm just going to bring you an update of the freshwater program. You can assume that's taken as read. So we have a new freshwater team started with us now from the 28th of July. If I can just point out these people to the back here. I just want to stand up, the freshwater team. So we have Nicholas Bowen, Sylvia Yardley, David Knight and Becky Crack. So we welcome those people along. The positions as three farm plan advisors, three farm plan advisors and the program coordinator as well. And yeah, obviously our objective is to provide support and resource to catchment groups and catchment group and farmers themselves, farmers and growers, in their preparation for farm environmental management plans or freshwater farm plans. So the last 3 weeks since the team have been at full strength, we've been mainly focused on our training. So we've had, there's many parts to this project, this farm plan implementation project, and so we've spent a majority of the time getting us prepared, looking at the regulations, Appendix N of freshwater farm plan regulations, which of course, as many of you know, are still being worked through by central government. We've been looking at our guidance material, looking at our catchment context information, our quality assurance processes, and our geospatial information and GIS skills as well. So we've already begun some early engagements with farmers as well. There's been a list of farmers who have approached us from various events like AMP shows and the Edendale Cran Cup, where we've had some willing people who've been proactive and wanting to work with us. So we're starting to make the communications with those people and start to go through that process now. There's still a little bit of training to do, but I think it's fair to say that our team are starting to feel confident now that we can begin that process of support for farmers. So we've also got a meeting set with Thriving Southland staff, and we of course want to work closely with catchment groups and the regional coordinators within Thriving Southland. So we are meeting with them and getting to know and build relationships with those people as well. And of course, we want to be front and centre. We want to be involved at field events and catchment groups where we can as well. So we also are preparing for engagement activities after spring calving and lambing has finished. We've got some plans around drop-ins, drop-in seminars, some guidance material type workshops and webinars, those types of engagement techniques that we'll be looking to make public in due course over the next 5 or 6 weeks. We're looking to promote that. Yeah, I guess the main objective for this team is I'll reiterate, is to provide the support to farmers and provide the resources for those farmers who are willing and motivated to develop their own farm environmental plans or their freshwater farm plans. And the idea is that we have a comprehensive set of guidance materials now, including example farm plans and the how-to step-by-step process. We have a list of on-farm mitigation actions available to farmers to choose from, and where they find they are meeting obstacles in that process, we can work alongside to help them overcome those obstacles. And also we have those facilities to provide resources like mapping and just general interpretation of plans and how these particular regulations could be met ready for certification within a farm plan. So that's the update for the freshwater team. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, thanks very much, Carla. Just and Sam, this is really, in my view, is really important work. We were a bit deflated when we thought we were going to the shops to get a farm plan, and we were all excited. We had everyone in the room, didn't we? And governments sort of put a stick through our spokes of our bike sort of thing on that. But what you're talking about is a comprehensive plan that will see those farmers through political cycles, and that is really important. We don't want people to be saying, once there's a new government in place, oh my God, I've got to get this plan of Environment Southlands, I didn't know about that. You've got a subset that have already gone through that process and done that. So I think it's really important we're providing that opportunity for those progressive farmers in the region. So I'll open up to a couple of quick questions if we have. Okay,
I'll move the report.
Thanks, Eric. We've got a seconder for that. Thanks, Jeremy. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I just want to say it's a very exciting time. I think we've got a fantastic team now. We're properly resourced, properly trained up, and really ready to hit the ground running. We look forward to giving you further updates to this committee.
Council appreciates your impetus on this and your work, so thank you.
Thank you.
Audio. 9.6. Craig and Polly come up and talk about land sustainability update. It's an update. Right, far away.
All right. Oh, yeah. Take it as a read. Yes, I will feel much of the time. I did have a wee presentation from the place thing the team, however we can really sort of talk through it. Where we currently CIF, the Catchment Improvement Fund, that's on fire. So there's funding there for mitigations such as wetlands, sediment traps, funds, that sort of thing. Public holes for erosion control and also green planting. Yep. And the next round of that going forward of the Waikawa Integrated Catchment Management Plan action on the ground. Nicole mentioned before about pest control and that. So yeah, part of the ICM Integrated Catchment Management Plan that was done for the Waikawa that highlighted the pest control. So we'll bring that again. So they've done some really good work out there. Created a nursery as well, so that's for the community for any ongoing planting. That funding, and also other parts for Slow the Flow, which is I think 7 farms within that project doing a range of different mitigations from planting, through the wetlands It's something that we would like to bring to the council at another stage, maybe bring them in to showcase that project. It'd be really interesting. Yep, Southland Settlement Project. Yep, that's in its final stages as well. Get out some poles and guards for that. And obviously we're active within different groups with a variety of field days there. Another key project was the grazing, or the grazing currently now. We've got around the community looking at what's happening there and working closely with compliance, which has been really good. Currently, today, cultivation workshop happening. So you're all welcome to attend that. Also, we have working with comms and compliance, and for us, we've got the webinar coming up, cultivation webinar tomorrow. So you're welcome to register and join that. So that'd be great. For environmental education, there's always a lot happening in that space. There's a stream study just up in Garston just recently done with support from Southland. The Matera Catchment Group grant, with 6 applications there, with 5 were completed, and the 6th one is coming into the next round this year. Good response there. Yep, farm plans. Carl spoke about that. It's nice we've got that team there, so we'll support them as much as we can. The other hot topic around is obviously constructed wetlands. There's quite a bit of space in the organisation on that, and it's just around enabling wetlands and working through their regulations. That's quickly the land sustainability, and we hand on to biodiversity.
So on the 1st of July, the Environment Southland created a permanent biodiversity team. So we now have 2 permanent biodiversity officers and myself, and we've been moved into the land sustainability team. So you usually see me as part of the biosecurity reporting. So this is our first time reporting with the new land sus team. As the report says, it was also the end of our Jobs for Nature funding. So that wrapped up at the end of the last quarter, and we had lots of environmental enhancement funds through that, lots of numbers in there, fencing, number of marks, etc. The Southland Fish Passage remediation project also wrapped up, and we'd managed to meet all the KPIs in that, with 259 sites remediated, which equates to about 30 kilometres of stream opened up, basic average. The biodiversity team also support 28 community groups, so biodiversity focused community groups, quite different to the work catchment groups are doing. We support the Southland Ecological Restoration Network and organised a trip for them down to Waituna that were hosted by the Trust down there as part of that field trip. Recently we've also run an event with the community to raise awareness around a garden bird survey, and managed to was very popular, and we ended up running out of cones. We had 75 bird feeders made and put out, so that was pretty good. And there was also a walk and talk event connected to that. So at the moment, the main focus of the new biodiversity team is developing our new work programs. We're currently working on finalising some criteria for a community group-based grant, and also looking at finalising a process and criteria for a new program of work that we're calling Key Native Ecosystems. So rather than having a contestable fund, we're looking at working in a more collaborative way with individual landowners over a longer period of time to get multiple outcomes happening on the highest priority pieces of Indigenous vegetation that we have. That's where we're heading.
Thanks, Polly, for that. Can we just start, just a really quick question. You, Craig, you mentioned about the Waikawa catchment team and their integrated catchment. Would you bring them in here to the council? I think it's really important. We would love to hear about their integrated catchment management plan, and specifically on what more they would require from this council and how they're actioning it and all this, because it's a new thing, isn't it? And how far's the Waihopai on with theirs? Have they got theirs complete?
Yes, they've just finalised that just for the financial year. It's obviously a different model than the Wakawa.
Yeah.
Wakawa story map. This one they've chosen a different method. Yes, if we can, we could get them to showcase that different sort of model, because it's depending on what the community, how they want to portray their plan.
That's all very tricky stuff, isn't it? And it would be really of benefit to see what we could do for them to do that. So that's just a thought. Any other quick questions before we?
Got one thing left. If Sam's all right, I'll just introduce our new land stability manager.
Oh,
which is
Take the week out of my sales. Great.
Got Tom Stokes. Tom. Sam, you can do an intro if you want to.
Nice to have you on board.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Simon's through you, Chair. Simon's with us for this week. He's already signed up, so you can still talk to him. But he's actually joining us on the 15th of September, full time, moving him and his family down here to Invercargill. We've already got a place lined up.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks. Great. Appreciate that. Someone to move that, thanks, that report. Thanks, John. Second.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Jeremy. All those in favour? Aye. That's carried. Thanks very much. And we've got the last item for David to present on the catchment operations.
I'll take that report as read, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say two things. Unfortunately, I haven't got a Kanoa 2 announcement. Still waiting for that. But they have called for Kanoa 3 projects, and so we may bring those back to you at some stage at the end of September. Just a quick other update. The team, I think we've talked enough about the Breville and all the rest of it, but they are working on those wide range of activities, as you can see in the report. And while I've got Catherine in the back of the room, I might just mention we have had divers into Bluff Harbour looking for our little fan worm, and we unfortunately had to drag them out because there was a tsunami warning. But basically they have not found anything at this point in time. So we are reasonably pleased with that. No news is good news. So maybe it was a very, very lonely fan worm for 4 years, hopefully, but we've still got half the area to cover as well. So that's about all.
Thanks.
Happy to take questions.
Any questions on that? Okay, well, someone to move that report. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, John. Second, all those in favour? Aye. That's carried. Appreciate that. Any extraordinary or urgent business? Thanks very much. We'll call the meeting closed. Thank you.
You guys are going to come down with me. I'm taking Rachel down.